Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. I'm Robin Murphy, and let's talk about what Philip K. Dick can teach us about robots. His stories and books offer 6 lessons in ethics, factory automation, strong AI, and teleoperation. Philip K. Dick is such a presence in science fiction that he's often referred to simply by his initials PDK. PDK is best known for his short stories. Just a few of them are Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which spawned the Blade Runner universe, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which became Total Recall, both the 1990s Stunner and the 2012 Turkey, The Minority Report, which became the Steven Spielberg Tom Cruise blockbuster that dropped the and was also a short-lived TV series, Second Variety, which was made into the Peter Weller B-movie Screamers, plus dozens more. There's currently a PDK anthology streaming on Amazon called Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, and that's mining his 120-plus short stories. Robots were featured in many of his stories, generally as elements of one of 3 typical situations. One situation is where people discover that they or loved ones might be robots. The second is where non-anthropomorphic robots threaten or confound human protagonists, and the third is both. While the role of robots in PDK's fiction is rather bleak and often combined with more fanciful telepathy and alternative realities, his books and stories offer 6 key lessons about ethics, automation, strong AI, and teleoperation. Lesson 1. Ethics. Weaponization of robotics is likely to be unethical. PDK speculated on the outcome of weaponization of robots in 2 classic short stories, Second Variety and To Serve the Master. In Second Variety, the U.S. builds robots as smart weapons that target anything alive that isn't a U.S. soldier. What could go wrong with that? Well, insufficient safeguards combined with unbounded machine learning for starters. But to be fair, even with sufficient safeguards, that level of weaponization violates United Nations agreements. The unethical objectives and sloppy engineering was fostered by the military and contractors because of genuine fears of losing, something we see today in the weaponization of drones and robot sentries. The real question posed by Second Variety isn't how soldiers would have to deal with the unintended but not really unexpected negative side effects of weaponized robots, but who is liable? The U.S. government for asking for stupid things, or the manufacturers for throwing professional ethics out the door? See the book Robotics Through Science Fiction, Artificial Intelligence Explained Through 6 Classic Robot Stories, which goes into more detail of Second Variety and other science fiction on the ethics of robots. Lesson number 2 on ethics. Robots will lead to unethical disparity of wealth. PDK's short story, To Serve the Master, was written in 1956, 20 years before futurist Yuval Noah Harari was born, but it perfectly illustrates Harari's concerns about Silicon Valley technology. And that's captured in a New York Times article, Tech CEOs are in love with their principal doomsayer. Lesson number 2, ethics. Robots will lead to unethical disparity of wealth. PDK's short story, To Serve the Master, was written in 1956, 20 years before futurist Yuval Noah Harari was born, but it perfectly illustrates Harari's concerns about Silicon Valley technology. See the New York Times article, Tech CEOs are in love with their principal doomsayer. Lesson number 2, ethics. Robots will lead to unethical disparity of wealth. PDK's short story, To Serve the Master, was written in 1956, 20 years before futurist Yuval Noah Harari was born, but it perfectly illustrates Harari's concerns about Silicon Valley technology. It was covered in a New York Times article, Tech CEOs are in love with their principal doomsayer. In To Serve the Master, robots have replaced people for most jobs, But many people do not accept a life of leisure with a guaranteed minimum income. A war breaks out between the moralists who want to destroy the robots so that people can return to having jobs, and the leisurists who are good with the robot status quo. The PDK dark twist: the robots are actually behind the war because they want to eliminate all humans. Lesson number 3, factory automation. Capitalism will drive the unethical commercialization of robotics. PDK didn't foresee the crashes and death involved in that rapid first-to-market rush that we're seeing in the autonomous vehicle market, but he did see capitalism distorting a utopian technological future. His short story, Autofact, in the streaming series episode version, describes how the perfect automated factory screws over survivors of a nuclear war. The factories not only keep working at producing luxury consumer goods that are no longer needed, but aggressively competes with the remaining humans for resources they need to survive. Autofact is a perfect example of mindless automation. PDK also foresaw the potential for capitalism to more subtly distort lives. In his book, Ubik, a smart house charges by the transaction, and if you can't pay, you can't open the refrigerator to get food, or open the front door to get to work, to pay the house, to open the door to the refrigerator. PDK played the smart house idea for laughs in Ubik, but with the Internet of Things, this could become no laughing matter soon enough. See the reviews of Autofact and Ubik and other reviews of science fiction on the ethics of robots on our webpage. Lesson number 4, factory automation. Factories will become completely automated. If PDK had lived to see Kiva Robotics, now Amazon Robotics, he would be unlikely to accept Amazon's claims that it will create 50,000 new jobs in 2 locations for its distributed headquarters. He would know that he was right all along about factory automation would eventually eliminate the need for any human involvement, which was the technological MacGuffin in his short story Autofact and in that streaming series episode. Back in PDK's day, the stated goal of General Motors was black factories, so called because they didn't need any lights to be turned on since they'd be run only by robots. The uncomfortable implications for social disruption were never fully encountered in the 1970s and 80s because GM spent too much on automating factories that produced the wrong products and went bankrupt. But poor planning does not mean automated factories aren't inevitable. Go to YouTube to watch the little Amazon robots move trays of goods to pick locations where humans pick up the goods and put them into individual boxes that other robots pack up. Now ask yourself, how long will it take to replace the humans who are mostly selling their pattern recognition abilities and long, flexible arms? Next, think about how soon all those jobs driving trucks and pushing paper will be lost to robotics and AI. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Lesson number 5, strong AI. There may be no real difference between a sentient robot and a person. There's a lot of debate in the press and around the water cooler as to whether robots can actually think or just seem to, especially given the popularity of HBO's Westworld. The expectation that robots could actually think is called the strong AI hypothesis, and it often drives science fiction stories where the humans debate the humanity of robots. In PDK's stories and books, there's little debate. Instead, the real issue is whether our main character is a robot. The PDK classic Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep led to Blade Runner. There, everyone except Rachel knew she was a robot, but who could be sure about Deckard until Blade Runner 2049? After all, he was more trapped and constrained in his job and life than Rutger Hauer's Take This Job and Shove It with Tears of Rain, Roy Batty. But what if you discover you're a robot and everybody knew it and was happy with you being predictable and dull and are a bit annoyed when you discover it and that you aren't what you seem to be and you actually have the temerity to complain? That rather depressing thought is the centerpiece of PDK's mind-blowing short story, The Electric Ant. See the Science Robotics article on strong AI and the NPR Science Friday interview on Westworld and strong AI and other science fiction on our website. Lesson number 6, Teleoperation. Teleoperation isn't limited to robots. Teleoperation is generally thought of something a person does with robots. A human teleoperator controls the robot, called a telefactor. But scientists have been teleoperating cockroaches and mice through neural implants for decades. Ian Tregillis, in his Alchemy Wars trilogy, imagines that once you get a taste of teleoperating an intelligent robot, you might be able to overcome any moral squeamishness about controlling a human the same way. PDK doubles down on this idea in his short story, A Game of Unchance. Robots, not people, are teleoperating animals in order to devastate the environment so that, wait for it, the robot owners can sell mitigations to the desperate farmers. Ethics, capitalism, teleoperation, PDK mixes up a pretty mean cocktail of ideas. Although PDK certainly had dark visions, his writing was not without hope. When his androids struggled with their humanity, there was at least the ideal of humanity as something to aspire to. When his human characters encountered capitalism unbound, they may have been the losers, but a larger portion of the population was thriving. In the end, some robots and some humans will survive, and his story suggests that more often than not, we will need each other in order to make it. Be sure to check out the topics section of the Robotics Through Science Fiction webpage at roboticsthroughsciencefiction.com for more science fiction that gets ethics, factory automation, strong AI, and teleoperation right.